Welcome to the December 2nd, 2021 Northampton County Council. Bill McGee, will you lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to also ask everyone for just a moment of silence in honor of Sam Collington, who is not from this county, but he was a Temple University student who was shot and killed on Sunday afternoon when he returned to campus. And he was a dynamic person who touched everyone on campus. And it just reminds me how precious our children's lives are. So if we could please have a moment of silence on his behalf. Thank you. Ms. Zembo, please call the roll.
Mr. Kuzic.
Present.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Here.
Mr. Giovanni.
Present.
Mr. Heckman.
Here.
Mr. Lott.
Here.
Mr. McGee.
Here.
Mr. Myers.
Here.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Here.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of November 18, 2021, and November 3rd, 2021, and November 10th, 2021, budget hearings.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Courtesy of the floor, I have two people that have signed up. You have approximately 5 minutes to speak. The first is Millie Bean. I believe I said that correctly. Is Millie here? If you would come to the microphone, please. If you'd state your name again and your address for the record.
It's Millie Bean, 6299 Howard Road, Penargil. Would I be allowed to hand out something to the council members?
It would probably be in your best interest to have somebody else do so, and then you wouldn't lose your time. You have 5 minutes to speak, and we probably will not engage with you. We will just allow you to say what you need to say.
Oh, sure, thank you. There's enough there, and there's not quite enough of those. Oh, and this one's for Mr. Giovanni. He's my area rep.
Uh-oh.
I'm in trouble.
Thanks, Tom. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. I live on Howard Road, and you may or may not be aware of a property that was just sold to the Nazareth Municipal Authority. That was my neighbor's. My dad bought the farm where we live, adjacent to Howard Farm, January 1st of 1960.
Go ahead.
And he bought the farm from his dad that had bought it in 1952. The Howards bought their farm from the Barlibs in 1958. We've been neighbors for 60 years. The Howards are 85 years old. They decided to sell their property a couple years ago. It's too much. So the farm is a historical farm. It was built in 1879, the home and stuff. So it's been there. I know we're friends, family, for years and years and years from the time they moved there. Now, the fact that this property was put on the market and they put a price on it of $850,000. And bottom line is, I had done research and I came up with, online it was like $485,000, or between $300,000 and $400,000. All depends where you look. So I don't know why they made it that much, but that's what it was. Now, sat since December 2019 till this past September when they got an offer of the $850,000. So when we were wondering who was going to buy it, we had heard some different farmers made offers. I don't know if they got them in writing or not. I can't verify that. That would have been up to the realtor to deal with the Howards. Nobody knew for sure. So we're waiting. And on November 1st, they had settlement. Now, the Howards come in and cleaned out the house a couple weeks before that. They did it remote. November 1st, to Monday, they had settlement. We found out, Mrs. Howard called my brother and said, "Do you have all your crops off?" Because he farmed the land for 50 years. "Okay, do you have all of your crops off?" Then they said we had heard they were selling it to Nazareth Borough, just the borough. So then found out that it wasn't the borough, it's the municipal authority, which is a whole different ballgame. Then that was a Monday. Tuesday, I worked at the polls all day. Wednesday, I made up a document and I went around to all my neighbors in the development up by me, Colony Lane, gave out papers to neighbors to tell them what had happened because they bought this farm with the full intent of spreading biosolids on it. Class B biosolids. So I gave out letters, I went out in the rain, I'm giving information out, leaving them in doorways. Then I made up a letter to the Nazareth Borough Municipal Authority, and I documented some information. We went to the November 18th council meeting, and I spoke, I took maps, I showed where the property was. There's farms. Mr. and Mrs. Howard had sold lots across the front of the property, directly, in front of the property. There's 80 acres, basically, that's not all tillable. There's only about 70 acres that's tillable, between 60 and 70. Some of it has trees. Some of it's very wet in the bottom. It comes off the road, and it slants down in, goes down behind, across to the neighbors' farms and fields behind, and ultimately goes down into the creeks in the back, which goes into the little bush kill down behind. So this is a huge deal for us because the folks that are with me, they have the houses that Mr. and Mrs. Howard bought the lots, sold the lots to. They put up real nice homes. I lived there since 1973. I have a modular home in the woods. My dad gave me 1.5 acres of ground. When I got married in 1972, in 73, I put a modular in. It wasn't farmland. So I've been there forever. My dad, my brother farms. We have a farm with 120 acres right next to the church, and the Howards were our neighbors and good friends for years. And next to that is the Farmers Fair, the Plainfield Farmers Fair. And across the street is the municipal park for the athletic, the students that play and games and everything. So you have all this going on, and the fact that the borough was able to offer or pay above price for this, okay, they were able to do that and give Howards what they wanted. Now, on November 17th, Mr. and Mrs. Juliana gave an interview to the Morning Call. It's in the paper. And then they had the meeting. This was on the 17th. And on the 18th, they had the municipal meeting. And on the 19th, there was another article in the paper after the meeting. So all that is documented. I don't know if you've seen any of it. The fact that there's a lot of things about that can happen from the contaminants. Class A, Class B, I'm sure you've heard of all of it. But Class B is what they want to spread on these fields. And you can have odors, you can have all kinds of things, you can contaminate the area. And I talked to the fellow from the Farmland Preservation Board, Tim Craven. No, it's fine. Well, I'm sorry. It's not like you're farther away. We're right, that's where we live. So I come here tonight knowing that this isn't something that maybe you have direct control over, but I want everybody to be aware. I'm talking to lots and lots of people. I sent a letter today to Susan Wild. I talked to Mara Scavello. I've been talking to lots and lots of neighbors. I'm doing Facebook, having people post to Facebook. We're going to make as big a deal as we can about this because of what's going on, because that's where we live. So I probably have done my 5 minutes. Do I have any
You
time?
did over, but I really wanted you to have a chance to say what you were saying. And what I'm going to ask you to do is make sure that Ms. Shafnisky in the corner over there, to your right, gets your phone number, and we will make sure that Ms. Zirinsky and Mr. Giovanni get it. Ms. Zirinsky's in charge of the EELU committee, which deals with a lot of this stuff, and he's your area rep.
Yeah.
And both of them will be
I
able to
sent him an
reach out to
email, and he's probably so busy he didn't get to it yet.
But make sure she gets your phone number. You don't need to read that out loud, and Aileen will take that for them, okay?
Could I have one more minute?
Yeah, you sure can. Mr. Weiss will let you have it, because I think he's up next.
I appreciate that. I put in for a right-to-know request to the Nazareth Borough Municipal Authority for the report that was done on the property for the purchase. And I did that the Tuesday. I got it back yesterday. They wanted to know if it was okay, and I sent back and I said no, because they had redacted parts of the report. The report addresses some of the things about the property. It doesn't address storm water problems because of the way the land is sloped and all the potential problems that it can have because it gets very, very wet in the back. So there's a lot of potential other problems than just assessing it to put biosolids on. So I do have that report, and I called the attorney that represents Nazareth Borough Council, or Nazareth Borough Municipal Authority. And he said, well, that's something that they can redact. So what's under there, I don't know. It's supposed to be figures. They have dates on here. Apparently, they've been working on this for quite some time, putting this together. And they just sold 50 acres. I never realized that Nazareth Borough Municipal Authority was in Palmer Township. And because it's in Palmer Township, they have fields across the street that they had gotten from the Seipel Farm back in 2000 by eminent domain, and they've been spreading biosolids on it for 20 years. And I think they actually did it longer than that. They might have rented it. But then when they owned it by eminent domain, they've been spreading it on there ever since. Now they've been able to sell it to what I believe is Amazon for $50 million. So I'll tell you what, to take advantage of two 85-year-old people and give them what they wanted, and Mr. and Mrs. Howard, I don't believe would ever do any, they are such sweet people. They were born and raised Mennonite. I've known them, went to Bible school with them. They were our teachers. And I don't think they would ever have done any harm. They were not told what was going to be done with the land. They only knew it was Nazareth Borough. So thank you very much for the extra time.
Thank you for informing us, and make sure she gets your phone number. Next, we have Mr. Richard Weiss. And if you could state your name, your address also.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name's Richard Weiss. I live at 6281 Howard Road, right on top of where this land was purchased by the municipal authority. A lot of things Millie said. She's my neighbor, and other neighbors here were concerned. We understand that the principles of law, the legality of biosolids on farmland, even in a preservation corridor such as this. Of course, it's disturbing. I also understand that it's big business. I think the initial intent of the Farmland Preservation Program, both county and state, from its inception, from its charter, was not necessarily to be in the business of spreading sewage. There's 600 municipalities statewide that have sewer treatment plants. And once again, I will reiterate the legality of it. If it were not legal, I'm sure the municipal authority has reviewed many things before purchasing the property. Once again, at full price, I might add. Because it's big business, it doesn't sit well for me personally or with my neighbors, and also with being a Plainfield Township resident. there's some implications with that. I mean, it was put in farmland preservation for a purpose, to keep it as farmland and to be, to just preserve that corridor. It's one of the last corridors in Northampton County. I don't know if you realize, but if we just take a ride around and look at the Lehigh Valley, okay? We live there because we chose to live there. I come from a very modest upbringing. I was taught principles of hard work, honesty, integrity, and I do my best to practice that in my everyday life. I chose to live out there because of the beauty of that corridor, and I was aware that it was in farmland preservation when I purchased it, which seemed like a win-win for me and my family. And now this is upon us. Once again, I'm not here to get into a legal discussion. We all know law, but we have to understand that in the beginning, this farmland preservation, I think, is a serious policy miscalculation that municipal authorities, should they come in here and get their way, this is the time and the place to have an open, frank discussion. If they continue, if they get their way, which legally probably going to happen. We hope it doesn't, but it's not a personal thing. It's business and it's law. I'm a truck driver, obviously, 33 years, UPS, I get around, I talk to people. It is what it is, but it's disturbing, and I think now is the time to have a serious look. Do we really want to be in the business of selling this kind of land to this type of buyer as a dumping ground? Like, it's legal for them to spread it, and it's disturbing, but let's be honest. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you better have a minute left, sir.
1 minute, I'll just shore it up. I think you all know where my thoughts are. I'm not here to debate all the stuff. I just think we have to take a serious look at, do we want to set this precedence level and allow this to come in, only to spawn more throughout the Commonwealth of municipalities having the legal right to come in. And it's big business. And they know it. They've already said it's a business deal, quite frankly. I went to the Nazareth meeting the other week, and yeah, I have to agree with that. It is big business. But so I think Millie hit on a lot of great points. I don't really have anything more to say other than I hope that the seriousness of this is considered and is discussed at a high level. Thank you for your time.
Sir, thank you for coming, and if you want to make sure that she gets your phone number, also, we appreciate you coming here this evening. And that way, Ms. Zirinsky and Mr. Giovanni can reach out to you to get more details if they so choose. No, thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak this evening? They were the only two that signed up. Okay, hearing none, thank you. I need to make a motion that we move into an executive session for purposes of potential litigation discussion. To say the time? It's 6:48 p.m.
No notes.
But tea is allowed.
I talked about the opioid thing at CCAF. They sold it for $50 million.
Oh, yeah. Is Chris coming?
I think that's all we're gonna talk about.
Second round, right? Second win? That's right. There you go. Good for you. You missed the 2021 picture.
Council didn't change.
They were scared to take a picture?
No, 2021, the council didn't change.
When does it change? 22. 18, 19, 20. They're all right up, they run up all the way over here. 20, 19, 18, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. Oh, well. Oh. I'm not going anywhere till January. I wanted to have it Saturday. I'm supposed to go and I'm running. I'm on front of the dock at the airport. No, I'm different. That house and all of it. So that's nice. Here in Bonnie Island. It's fun. No, I'm going to Bonnie Island in January. See, I can do this running again this year to work to come home. If you want to drive, there is nothing to do there. Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what I know. That's all you get. You don't need money. Drive, eat, drive, you know, it's right. You got to do that night day. Yeah, it's fun. And, all the balloons and then it's over. Here. You know, and then, listen, because I run out of page on the paper, well, we'll work it. He's a good guy. That's all I need. But he's a, yeah, he's smart and energetic. That's good. He's a good guy. I know. But he's also one that's susceptible. Concentrate, not speak. Okay. I heard Rich Steve's on my back. In general, years. It's not 25. Congratulations. I like you. I know. I'm not that picture. What? I'm not on that picture. I was on that picture. 2012. Right there. Why did you not find the picture? That picture? What's wrong with you? I want to send you a picture for them. Oh, really? That was your whole thing? The last time you did it? It's true, he's not. I was just focused. Wow. So many people. I'll put it over. I don't remember him. He was playing. He was like,
I have no idea what they spread on the farm behind. Lori. It smells pretty every spring. It smells awful. Yeah. Okay. All right. Ron's always been full. Thank you.
Okay, we're back. The time is 7:04. We've returned. We had a discussion on litigation and no action was taken. Next, I'd like to ask Mr. McClure if he has a report for us this evening.
I do. It wasn't going to be part of my report, but you'll recall very early in my term and some of yours, we tried to prohibit farms from spreading sludge in the Farmland Preservation Program, and we were rebuffed by the state. I think the best we could do was get a voluntary pledge from new enrollees into the, am I remembering that correctly, Mr. Zirinsky? So we are, as you may recall, we are in opposition to the spreading of biosolids wherever they're spread, generally speaking, although the law is not on our side in that regard. And we will do administratively everything we possibly can do to limit the spreading of sludge anywhere in Northampton County, but unfortunately our hands are pretty well tied. So the rest of my report goes like this. Whereas Margaret Peg Ferraro is serving her final term as a Northampton County Council member. And whereas Mrs. Ferraro has the distinction of being the first Republican woman elected to any countywide position in Northampton County since members were allowed to cross-file in the 1950s. And whereas she was the first and remains the only Republican woman to serve county council as president and vice president. And whereas she was a similar trailblazer with the Northampton County Republican Committee, where she was the first woman selected to lead in 1998, and the first woman named as an officer of the Pennsylvania State Republican Party. And whereas a lifelong resident of Nazareth, Peg attended Kutztown University to get her bachelor's degree in secondary education. Currently, she is retired from teaching students at Nazareth Area Middle School. And whereas, prior to running for Northampton County Council, Peg was a supervisor and treasurer for Upper Nazareth Township from 1972 to 1987. Additionally, serving times on the Planning Commission and Zoning Hearing Board. And whereas her initial election to Northampton County Council was in 1990, and since then she has spent a total of 23 years serving the residents of Northampton County. And whereas Peg has also served a variety of local and valley-wide charities, including being a past board member for the Lehigh Valley Chamber Orchestra and supporting Friends of Nazareth Memorial Library, the Nazareth Women's Club, Nazareth Heritage Committee, and the League of Women Voters. And whereas Peg has also served as the executive director of the Nazareth Area Blue Eagle Education Foundation. Now therefore I, Lamont G. McClure, Northampton County Executive, on behalf of the residents of the county, recognize and honor Margaret Peg Ferraro for her dedication and service to the residents of Northampton County. Northampton County, Pennsylvania, December 2nd, 2021. Here you go. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. All these years, and this is all you get. Oh, sure. Well, I'll just out of trouble with the guy who enforces this policy.
Well deserved. Good for you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Okay, now we move on to old business. First, we have a public hearing on an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Providing for the Establishment of the Boundaries of County Council Districts for the Election of Northampton County Council Members by District." We have two configurations. I'd like to go with alternate one first. Myself and Ms. Zirinsky introduced this ordinance at the November 18th, 2021 meeting. I'd like to ask if there's any questions or comments from the public. Hearing none, I'd like to see if there's any discussion from council regarding adopting alternative 1. I did, I'm sorry. Yes, I did.
Yeah, I know there's two, and I'm not gonna get into a debate, I just wanted, since I think it'll be resolved, because it's very close to what we do, I would just like to give my reasons why I supported, leaving it alone, that the district representatives proposed. I don't even think we're gonna get to that. The people called and they asked me, I got, this request to please vote this way, and some people said, what's gonna happen? And I said, this will come up tomorrow, don't worry. But, anyway, I believe when we look at all of these, they were all legal. I mean, the courts are loath to get involved in local legislative things. And we talked to our solicitor, so actually any one of these proposals, leaving it alone or 1, 2, 3, 4, they all would have been legal. So that really was never an issue. But I wanted to give my specific reasons why I felt the way I did, because I think at some points they were confused and not understood. For me, personally, it really doesn't have, I don't have a dog in this fight, because I'm gonna say I will never, and this isn't a college coach job decision, never. This is an honest, I've never, ever, ever will I be running for a district seat for county council. I can say that with 100% certainty. So it's not gonna benefit me or hurt me in any way. It's really about representation.
Ron, is your mic on?
Yeah, thank you. We redistrict, one, we redistrict to align populations and areas based on contiguous borders and continuity of communities and culturally historic ties. 2, District 1 historically was arranged around urban Bethlehem, District 2 around urban Easton, District 4, the northern tier of townships and boroughs, and District 3, the many townships and boroughs in the mid to lower county, once referred to as our political fertile crescent. That belonged to one of the executives. Displacing Hanover Township, this is my third point, that is united with Bethlehem by school district, water, sewer, and many, many years of ties, in an almost seamless blending of the city and township, I feel is breaking off one of its roots, is unnecessary and makes little sense to me. 4, neither Lower Saucon or William Township has any real connection to District 1. Putting Williams Township with District 1 would be no different than putting Moore Township with District 1. Both townships have more in common with the townships and boroughs in District 3, where they've historically resided. The current alignment passes all our regulatory tests. This is a purely legislative responsibility and decision to make. So this is council's decision. We have, this is where we had a discussion the other day and who's in charge of what. This is clearly council's job. We can get all the input we want, but it's up to each council person. And lastly, after speaking to some past county officials, including former Executive Seyfried, who helped put together the original district alignments, I feel that if it's not broke, don't fix it. I think the current alignment works well, passes muster legally, and that's why I supported what Mr. Myers and Mr. Giovanni had put forward. And that's all.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this option?
Just a question, why did we flip it?
Why did I flip it?
Yes.
Because I figured if you would vote for the alternate first, then you table the other, as opposed to voting, I figure you have a discussion on the alternate. Dealer's choice. Any other discussion on the alternate? Mr. Lott.
From the beginning, I stated either the current or alternate one made the most sense to me.
I liked alternate one because geographically, you had your southern, you had your two middle ones, and you had your upper one. It really geographically keeps the areas together. Right now, 3 starts below District 1, wraps around District 1, wraps up above District 1. So geographically, I think it looks like a better one, a better map. Numbers-wise, it's heading in the right direction. Not that the current one doesn't pass muster, but this one does push the numbers a little bit better. My main concern with alternate one should not be a concern at all, but I think it looks very bad when the party in control knocks a sitting rep out of their district. That being said, I've been told that that is not the case here, that at least one of the people in that new district would not be running anyway, 1 or maybe 2. So that kind of alleviated, I didn't want to knock out somebody by redrawing the district. So that gave me a little more comfort level with alternate 1. So that's pretty much my thought is why I'm going to support 1 because I just think it looks like a better geographical layout. The numbers are better. As far as the culture, I mean, if we were to put townships and, that are alike, you'd put all your urban together, you put all your suburban together, and you put all your rural together. And that would be your districts if you're trying to match the culture. And I don't think we've ever really tried to match the culture. Every district kind of has a little bit of everything in there, except for maybe Tom, he's all rural. But, the rest of the 3 districts have a little bit of everything in them. So it's a tough choice. I don't really think either one's a bad thing. Like I did have concern about, I didn't want to knock somebody out of their district, and it doesn't appear that would be the case. So I'm a lot more comfortable with 1 now. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Cusick, do you want to respond to that? Well, since he's referring to you, you don't have to respond. I'm just giving you.
Well, I just think, again, both of them passed the numerical test. Mathematically, I think the deviation for the current one is 2.7%. For alternate 1, it's 2.0. Yeah, so mathematically, it's very little difference. If that's, where people want to go, that's where people want to go.
We're into deviations. God bless you. Mr. McGee. Yes.
I'd like to talk about some of the homework that was done on this with the clerk. The clerks did a lot of work, homework on this, and I want to thank them for all their hard work. I don't think this was easy to put all these options together. And I actually looked at both of them as well, and I'm leaning towards supporting option 1. Thank you.
Any other? Ms. Zirinsky.
I'll just say why I wanted to support this ordinance. This is the current map. This is alternate 1. In the current map, I really feel that Lower Saucon is very, very much alienated from the other part in Allen and Bath and East Allen. I think that Mr. Heckman's point about separating the school districts is kind of moot because in both geographic maps, you have Hanover, Bethlehem City, and Bethlehem Township all in different regions. And here, Hanover has more, I think, in common with Bethlehem Township than it does necessarily with Bethlehem City, being a suburb. And the locations here in this alternate 1 seem to just be less gerrymandered. And I'm going to use that word because I think they really group everything together very nicely in areas that are contiguous and areas that don't look like they were carved out.
Any other comments from council?
It's a fair map.
Okay, call for the vote.
No, wait, review it. We're voting on.
We are voting on I'll read the ordinance again. Ordinance providing for the establishment of the boundaries of county council districts for the election of Northampton County Council members by district, alternate 1.
Alternate 1.
Mr. Giovanni.
No.
Mr. Myers.
Can I wait?
Mr. Heckman.
No.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
No.
Mr. Myers.
I'm torn. Because I have 1, so I'm gonna stick with 1. No.
The ordinance is adopted by a vote of 5 to 4.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have a public hearing on an ordinance entitled, an ordinance providing for the establishment of the boundaries of county council districts for the election of Northampton County Council members by district, current configuration. May I have a motion to table this ordinance?
Can we just get rid of it? It's already mute.
It was already introduced.
Motion to
It was
table.
already introduced. I have to have it tabled.
Motion to table.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Could I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Zirinsky? Do we need to vote on that?
Yep.
Vote on the motion?
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
No.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yeah.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
No.
Motion passes by a vote of 7 to 2.
Thank you. Next, we have a public hearing on an ordinance entitled, an ordinance providing for the compensation of elected officials in the county of Northampton. Mr. Cusick and Lott introduced this ordinance at November 18, 2021 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the public? Any discussion from council? Yes, Ms. Ferraro.
I just think the county executive salary is much too low, and not just because he gave me a citation. But, to be serious, to me, that salary should be tied into something. I think it should be 150,000. 100,000 is like you're volunteering. You're running a corporation here, you're running a business here of how many, 2,000 employees? You're responsible for all the day-to-day work of this organization, of this county. And I just feel that 100,000 is, at least it's a nice bump, but I think he should be right up there at the top, the most highly compensated in the county. Not number 50 or wherever he is now. Okay, so that's my point I'd like to make now.
Thank you. Is that in the form of an amendment, or are you just having discussion?
I
Or
will.
do you want to wait and have discussion and then see
Yeah,
if
let's
you want
do
to make
some
an amendment?
discussion, see if anybody else agrees with me.
Mr. Lott?
I do agree with Ms. Ferraro. I think this is a politically tough thing to do, to ask people to vote raises for themselves, or not themselves, but the people taking their seats in the next term. It's difficult. So it makes a lot of sense to me to tie, so we don't have to constantly wait 15 years till somebody has the gumption to do this, that we should tie this in to, I don't know, president's judge or some, some kind of factor. So I totally agree with you. I don't think this should be something that the council has to politically bang their head against the wall to do all the time. And I think if we actually set a mechanism up that it just increased automatically, I think would make a lot more sense than what we're trying to do here. But like you said, something's better than nothing, so I'm certainly going to support this, but I would love to support something that carries on the raises. So that's my thoughts.
Now, if we would, I have a question.
Yes.
If we do vote on this, how long do we have to wait? Can we just bring up another one? Or do we have to wait a certain number of years before we can do it again?
I don't, go ahead, Mr. Cusick. Who's going to ask? I
Yeah,
don't even- I don't think we have to
my,
vote on
my
anything.
understanding of the charter is that the compensation cannot be changed during a person's term in office, so it's got to stay the same. And it has to be voted on 1 year prior to the person taking office.
So we should have done this a year ago.
So the ideal time would have been if you wanted the current executive, who was just recently reelected, to be compensated at a higher level, would have been to have done this a year ago. Now, of course, would you want to run for reelection saying that I just voted for an ordinance to raise my salary and I just signed an ordinance to raise my salary? Politically, that's probably not not ideal. So, and I'll just follow up by saying this. And I said this before. We had a vacancy for controller. One person applied. We had an election for county executive. And to be quite frank, only one person ran for the job of county executive. We have state representatives who, due to their automatic pay raise scheme next year, are going to make over $95,000. They get off in the summer like I do. Division heads, we recently approved, I believe it was the Director of Human Resources, $96,000 starting salary. It should certainly be higher than where it is. I'm not ready to pull the trigger on 150, Mrs. Ferraro, but I think that this is a reasonable starting point. And if, well, and again, if in 2 or 3 years you feel that it needs to be even higher, it can be addressed at that time. But I felt that after what we recently went through with the election, that now is the time to do it. So that's why I'm supporting this.
I'd like to make a comment on this. I agree with the proposal, and I somewhat agree with Ms. Ferraro. I would like to suggest amending the numbers a little bit.
Yes.
I agree with Mr. Cusick's principle and his rationale. I'd like to see $5,000 added to the controller and make it 85 instead of 80. I'd like to see 20,000 added to the county executive, so that it would be 120. 150, I didn't get a proclamation like that, so I'm going for 120. And then I'd like to see council raised to 12.5 with a 500 additional for president. Because again, this hasn't been done since 2008. If there's a way to tie it in and give raises every so often, that's your choice, but I would just like to see it get raised at this time. Me voting for this, I don't get the benefit of it. I might down the road, but I just got reelected, so this doesn't directly affect me, it doesn't affect him, and it doesn't affect the controller until the next one comes in. So I don't think there's anybody up here who's giving themselves a raise, and it won't take effect for at least 2 years or 4 years. So those are my proposed numbers. It's up to Mr. Cusick if I should make an amendment to such, but that's what I think. I think people here do good work. I agree. The county executive is grossly underpaid. I think the county controller is grossly underpaid for the responsibilities that they do. Any other comments? Ms. Zirinsky? No, we're still in discussion. I'm just making my comments. I didn't make a motion.
No.
I just want to say that I'm not really, though I might not benefit from this salary raise, I don't feel comfortable at all voting on a raise for myself or voting on this compensation that's not going to take an effect till 4 years. Because in 4 years, what is $120,000 going to be? We don't know. I think it makes more sense to tie it to something else, like the consumer index or some other wage if we are able to, or put it up for a referendum at least our salary, so that we're not voting to give ourselves a pay raise, even if it's not in our term, it's in the next term. There has to be a mechanism by which these pays can be increased incrementally without us having to do it. I mean, if it hasn't been done since 2008, obviously, these wages that we're looking at reflect 2008, and they're not necessarily going to reflect 2025.
Yes, Mr. Spadoni?
It should be noted that in the Home Rule Charter, Section 202, and recognizing Councilwoman Zawinski's comments, it reads as follows, that county council is to establish in accordance with the charter the salaries and wages of all elected officials, officers, and employees, and to set the number of officers and employees of each agency. So despite what you said, the Home Rule Charter says it's the responsibility of council.
But is it our responsibility to set the wages like this, or is there another
Sorry,
way?
I can't hear you.
I said, is it our responsibility to do it through resolution or ordinance, I mean?
Yes.
And not, can we not tie it to anything else? Can we not do it so it's an automatic, or do we have to do it like this? Can it be a referendum? Can there be some other mechanism by which we do it other than?
I think the answer to that is an unqualified yes, but what you have before you is the ordinance as proposed.
Okay, since this is, okay. And while I'm asking, when the district seats run, it's going to be like, what, next year, 2 years from now?
2 years.
Does that mean that everybody who is in office now or who would get reelected would get it? So it would put everybody at different pay rates on the council.
Yes.
That seems like that's
Yes, correct.
a little odd.
Well, you have to understand that the policy, as I understand it, is to have a level playing field so that people that are running for the office know what the compensation is. It's forward-looking, not backward-looking.
Mr. Cusick?
Yeah, and I would say that we have had that situation before where there were members of council that had been elected that were making more than others. But I would also follow up on Mr. Spadoni's comments by asking you to refer to Section 106 of the Home Rule Charter under compensation. It says clearly that the county council shall have the power by ordinance to set the salary of each elected official. It doesn't provide for a referendum. The other part says no ordinance shall increase or decrease the salary of any elected official during his term of office. So my interpretation, or simple interpretation, is that it's got to stay the same for all 4 years. I know that the state legislature has gotten around that by tying it to the consumer price index, but I don't think that's particularly good government. And then the last piece says no ordinance which increases or decreases the salary of an elected official shall take effect less than 1 year after its date of enactment. So it's got to be done a year in advance. So, you know, the time, if we wanted to have done this for the recently elected county executive and members of council, it would have been 1 year ago at this time. But, you know, again, I'm not tied to these numbers particularly. I think the ones that we've put out here are reasonable. Could I go up or down a little bit? Yeah, I don't have any opposition. If somebody wants to make a motion, but I would do each one separately. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. McKee?
The only thought I had, Mr. Rinsky brought up the point about the council having two different salaries during the same run. Kick the can 2 more years down the road, and then they'll all be equal in 4 years. It's a long time away, but then you can straighten it out now. So, not to add another thing to the fire.
Mr. Myers, and then Mrs. Ferraro, and then Mr. Heckman.
I don't have a problem with this, because we're all sitting here right now discussing the increase for the county exec that's here. and everybody sitting up here knows damn well he's going to veto it because he sure is not going to vote for himself a raise. That's common sense will tell you that, and I'm sure we're well aware of that. As far as getting more competent people, I have to agree with my friend, Mr. Cusack, even though I don't call him my friend too often. No, just kidding, John. You know, but we do need to keep competent people running for office in this county. You know, there's some folks that say, I may not be that competent, but what the hell? You know what I mean? We need to level the playing field and get some qualified people. And I don't have a problem if you want to increase a little bit, but I'm not looking at, well, no 150. That's just not going to work for me. You know, I'm in the 120, 125 range. I think it's a great thing to do. And I think that's the best way to do it. But as far as council, I don't care what we do one way or another. We're poor ass people anyway.
Thank you, Ms. Ferraro.
I just, I'm talking history again. Ron, when
Make
we,
sure your mic's on. It's on.
when we, in 1990, at one time, I thought that the district seats, they voted for the raise, and then 2 years down the road, the districts caught up. The at-large got the raise, and then 2 years down the road,
Yes,
so,
you're right. Yeah, I mean, what Mr. Kusick said, right, we did, and they couldn't take benefit of it, but when their cycle came up and they got elected, then they did. So it's not really unusual, it's just the way the law is. But yeah, you're right, that happened.
Mr. Heckman, you were next.
Yeah, I'm going to support this. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, you know, I'm going to probably, well, I always get in trouble. There is an element of public service involved in all of this. And we are still local government. I sure hope we're not aspiring to be like the state or federal. I mean, you know, that they're now so far below used car salesmen. That's why most of your or anybody are behind. All right, let's pay. They're so far below county council people that that's why a lot of the people don't even believe in government or trust it, because it has become somewhat of a trough. And I mean, you know, that when they did the automatic raises, I remember that time, and when we still had newspapers, they got raked over the coals, and rightly so. I mean, it was the midnight raids. I think Bill Wright wrote about that, and you'd remember them as far. And I did it so that they wouldn't have to take the flak, and they could get automatic raises all the time. And most of the time, they never get voted out of office. I mean, we know that. Just like with the feds, it's such a disconnect with the public anymore between elected officials and the average Joe and Mary and Jane or whatever the names are, that I just don't want to see us fall into that thing. Do I believe that we should give the executive a raise? Sure. Yeah, why not? Do I believe that the controller should get a raise? Sure, why not? Council, I'll support it. I mean, if you're coming up here to make money, you know, if you're going to try and break down how much you're making per hour, I'd say go run for something else. I mean, this is still local government, and I do think of the public service aspect, and I mean, I agree that the county executive's position is one where it is underpaid, but at the same time, I would say that the idea that somehow, I mean, Mr. McClure has had a great first 4 years, and I'm sure he'll have a great second 4 years. But I mean, he ran before this raise was ever put up. Now, I think he'd take offense if someone said, well, hopefully if we raise it, we'll get somebody more qualified than Mr. McClure. So I mean, money does not necessarily guarantee competence. And elected officials tend to throw that around a lot. Well, we want more competent people. What does that say for you? I mean, so I always sort of like go, well, money, I was in the private sector too, and money doesn't buy competence. I mean, it's good, it's nice. I mean, and sure, I mean, you probably get more people coming out of the woodwork to run. But I mean, I'm not one of those that believes that, well, if we spend all this money or give somebody $200,000 a year, you're gonna get the best and the brightest. No, you'll get the most popular, like most elections are, or the most connected, or the most person that can raise the most money. So having said that, I'm gonna support it where it's at, and I'll even support the council stuff. I'm not worried about the blowback on that. I mean, it's a modest change, and I think the executive at 100,000, I'm fine with that, and the controller at 80,000. I mean, I'd even go the controller up if somebody wanted to, but I'm pretty comfortable with the numbers you've put forward, so I don't have a problem with it.
Thank you. Ms. Zirinsky?
I just want to ask Mr. McGee to clarify his point. Were you suggesting that we kick the can down the road 2 years so that the county council salary could be consistent? Is that what you were suggesting?
Well, that was my idea, but then I had heard some history that, the last time, the way it went, every 2 years, the cycle's broken with the district seats and then the at-large seats. So I'm really, it was just an idea. I wasn't really that passionate about it.
No, but I heard you, and it makes me think that maybe we should try to figure out what wages should be in place 4 years from now. Because this salary is not going to give Mr. McClure a raise. Isn't that correct? Not in this cycle.
No, it is
It's not
not.
going to pertain until 4 years from now. So I don't understand why we'd vote on $100,000 when we all know that right now that's not enough, if that's what you're saying. Do you know what I mean? Why don't we wait a little bit, figure out what these numbers should be for 4 years from now, and then vote on that? That's just what I'm saying.
I'd like to make a comment. I don't think this is intended to give Mr. McClure a salary directly. It is intended to give these positions
Yes.
salary.
Right.
And so I don't believe personalities or personnel directly was considered. It's the titles and the compensation, and that's what we're addressing. And so at this point, I would like to make a motion to amend this ordinance and the proposed numbers as follows. I'd like to propose $85,000 for the controller. I would like to propose $120,000 for the executive. And I'd like to propose $12,500 for council and an additional $500 sustained for the president's seat. So I would need a second on that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Ferraro. Now you can discuss the motion.
I'd like to amend it. Can we vote on the three separately? I mean, if we're gonna
Yes, you
vote on a
can.
package, I know how I'll vote. But
No,
I
you
mean-
can. I can call it separately if you
Well,
want.
no, that has to be separate.
There have to be separate motions and separate seconds.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to amend
To
the
withdraw.
county controller's salary from the 80. I'd like to withdraw my motion. Ms. Ferraro, do you withdraw your second?
Yes.
Does
I
she
withdraw.
withdraw? We've withdrawn our motion. I'd like to restate the motion that I would like to amend the salary of the county controller to $85,000. Can I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Do I have to,
Call for a vote
what do I do?
or discussion.
Discussion.
Linda would like me to wait. Could we let Linda
Yeah.
gather her thoughts? Do we have a discussion on that motion? No discussion, call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
No.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 8-1.
Thank you. Second, I would like to make a motion to amend the salary for the county executive to $120,000. May I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Mr. G.
Any discussion on that motion?
Just quick discussion, because I'm sure Mr. McCall appreciates this. We're not talking about Mr. McClure. We've been mentioning him. I'm sure he's not going to be, he doesn't read. Mr. McClure, the executive who gets elected in the next cycle would get this X amount of dollars.
Correct.
And
I thought I said
it has nothing to do with Mr. McClure personally or otherwise.
I thought I said that.
That's all. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion on this motion? Call for the
On
vote. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cusick.
Yeah, just, again, 120 is a little rich for me, but if it prevents how can I say this? If it encourages better candidates to run, then I think it will be worth it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this motion? Call for the vote.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
No.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Sure, why not? Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 8-1.
Thank you. Last, I would like to amend the motion, create a motion to amend the county council salary to $12,500 and retain the $500 additional compensation for the presiding officer. May I have a second for that motion?
Oh, sure, I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Cusick. Is there any discussion on this matter?
I'm just gonna say, I might vote no because I like what you originally did.
I could go back to that then.
Well,
If we
no.
vote no. So I'll motion, vote on the motion.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yeah.
Ms. Zirinsky.
No.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
No.
Mr. Lot.
No.
And Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 6-3.
Thank you. Now, given the amendment to the ordinance, can we vote on the ordinance, please?
Oh, is there a full ordinance now? Is that all now?
Well, you have to.
Do you need me to take can I do the whole ordinance together?
As amended.
Okay. This is the ordinance that says it was introduced. We're only amending the ordinance that was introduced, so it has to be adopted as it was introduced.
Concurrent with the votes we just had.
No, as amended.
Right, as amended.
amended?
As amended.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amendment. All right.
Yep.
As amended, correct?
Yes.
So I'd like a vote on the ordinance as amended.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Pass.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
No.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
The ordinance was adopted by a vote of 7-1 with one pass.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a public hearing on an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance by the Northampton County Council concurring with the City of Bethlehem and the Bethlehem Area School District and providing for property tax exemption for certain deteriorated property as defined in Ordinance 2021-24 of the City of Bethlehem, pursuant to Act 76 of 1977 of the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as amended, and Act 42 of 1977 of the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as amended, and agreeing with the amendment to Article 342 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Bethlehem entitled Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Enterprise Development Area. Mr. Myers and Giovanni introduced this ordinance at the November 18th meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
Not this one. Mr. McGee. Fine.
On the LERTA?
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's Mr. McGee and Mr. Lot, I apologize. My notes are incorrect. I will go flog myself after the meeting, thank you. Are there still any questions or comments from the public? Any discussion from council? Call for the vote.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
No.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 8-1.
Thank you. Next, we have the consideration of matters related to the 2022 Northampton County Budget and Capital Improvements Plan. We have the consideration of budgetary position-related issues, created or eliminated positions, District Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Department, Department of Human Services, Area Agency on Aging, Department of Human Services, Graysdale, upgraded positions, Department of Administration, Weights and Measures, District Attorney's Office, Department of Corrections, Department of Human Services Area Agency on Aging, and Department of Human Services Mental Health. Mr. Heckman, will you introduce the resolution from
All
the
right.
District Attorney's Office?
I think I have everything in order. I beg council's indulgence if I take a second to shuffle. I know we're all quick on the draw. But I think I have what I have to have in the order it's supposed to be. And if I change it, it's my discretion. But anyway, all right, the first one is, it is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Assistant District Attorney, pay grade CE-3-1A, salary $63,626, shall be created in the District Attorney's Office effective January 1st, 2022. So moved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this matter?
Oh, may I
Call for
add-
the vote.
May I add, we've painfully discussed a lot of this stuff.
Call for the vote, please.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky. Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
No. Yes, I'm sorry.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Mr. Heckman?
Okay, next we have the Department of Human Services. Okay.
No, we have the sheriff's next.
It is
Sheriff.
Sheriff.
Sheriff's Department.
Sorry. Oh, God. It is hereby resolved that one full-time position of Administrative Specialist, pay grade CR 18-1A, salary $34,243, shall be created in the Sheriff's Department effective January 1st, 2022. It is further resolved that one full-time position of Clerical Specialist, pay grade CR 17-1A, salary $32,703, shall be created in the Sheriff's Department effective January 1st, 2022. It is further resolved by the Northampton County Council that two part-time positions of Deputy Sheriff, pay grade DS 23-1A, total salary $48,171, shall be eliminated in the Sheriff's Department effective January 1st, 2022. So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
All right.
Excuse me.
Okay. All right, next we have the Department of Area Agency on Aging and Human Services. It is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Aging Care Manager 3, pay grade PS 37B-1A, salary $45,228, shall be created in the Department of Human Services Area Agency on Aging Division effective January 1, 2022.
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
All right, next we have Human Services Graysdale. It is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that one full-time position of Therapeutic Recreation Assistant Director, pay grade CS 23-1A, salary $50,545, shall be created in the Department of Human Services, Graysdale, effective 1/2022. It is further resolved by the Northampton County Council that one part-time position of Watch Person, pay grade GU1-3C, salary $13,919, shall be eliminated in the Department of Human Services, Graysdale, effective January 1st, 2022. So moved.
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yep.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Now we go to upgraded positions. And first on the list is the Department of Administration Weights and Measures. It is hereby resolved that one full-time position of Deputy Sealer, Weights and Measures, pay grade RU 146F, salary $36,466, shall be upgraded to one full-time position of Field Training Inspector, pay grade RU 15-6F, salary $38,190, in the Department of Administration, Weights and Measures, effective January 1st, 2022. So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
No.
Adopted by a vote of 8 to 1.
Okay, next we have the District Attorney's Office. It is hereby resolved that one full-time position of Clerical Technician 3, pay grade CR 151A, salary $29,825, shall be upgraded to one full-time position of Clerical Specialist, pay grade CR 17-1A, salary $32,703 in the District Attorney's Office, effective January 1st, 2022. So moved.
Discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9 to 0.
Okay. Okay, next we have the Department of Corrections. It's distinguished guests for the Department of Corrections. There. Anyway, it is hereby resolved that one full-time position of Volunteer Services Coordinator, pay grade CS 23-8H, salary $68,819, shall be upgraded to pay grade CS 26-6F, salary $72,318 in the Department of Corrections, effective January 1, 2022. It is further resolved that one full-time position of Corrections Officer Administrator, pay grade CS 26-9I, salary $82,607, shall be upgraded. One full-time position of Corrections Operations Administrator of Maintenance, pay grade CS 27-9-1I, salary $86,496 in the Department of Corrections, effective January 1, 2022. It is further resolved that one full-time position of Corrections Office Administrator of Personnel, pay grade CS 26-3C, salary $63,371, shall be upgraded to one full-time position of Corrections Operations Administrator of Personnel, pay grade CS 27-3C, salary $355 in the Department of Corrections, effective January 1st, 2022. It is further resolved that one full-time position of Corrections Office Administrator of Security, pay grade CS 26-2B, salary $60,643, shall be upgraded one full-time position of Corrections Operations Administrator of Security, pay grade CS 27-2B, salary $63,498 in the Department of Corrections, effective January 1st, 2022. So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Oh,
This committee meeting.
yes.
Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9 to 0.
Next, Department of Human Services Area Agency on Aging. It is hereby resolved that one full-time position of Aging Care Management Supervisor, 1, pay grade HS 38C-1A, salary $49,920, shall be upgraded to one full-time position of Aging Care Management Supervisor 2, pay grade HS 41A, salary $54,514 in the Department of Human Services, Area Agency on Aging, effective January 1st, 2022. All right, so moved.
Any discussion?
I have
Yes, sir.
just one question. I know when we discussed this in the past, and we brought it up, and I don't have a problem with it. I just like to go to clarification, not clarification, but how many supervisor ones and how many supervisors twos we have in the future. I know we requested, or I hope we get that.
Any further discussion? Call for the vote?
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Okay, next we have Department of Human Services, Mental Health. It is hereby resolved that one full-time vacant position of County Caseworker 2, pay grade PS 35-1A, salary $41,060, shall be upgraded to one full-time position of County Mental Health Program Specialist 1, pay grade HS 39-1A, salary $52,166, in the Department of Human Services Mental Health effective January 1st, 2022. So moved.
Any discussion? Call for the vote?
Mr. Heckman?
Yes?
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have the consideration of the 2022 salary resolution. Mr. McGee, will you read this, please?
Yes. Resolved by the Northampton County Council that the 2022 salaries of the career service and exempt employees not within collective bargaining units whose job classifications are within the parameters of the county council career service and exempt pay scales respectively, as well as the part-time professional employees, shall be indicated on the attached pay scales.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this matter? Call for the vote?
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman? Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have the adoption of the 2022 budget. First, the consideration of amendments to amendments to the proposed budget resolution. We'll start there. Could I have someone introduce this resolution? Mr. Myers?
Which one are we at?
The one that
Read
says,
the one here. Resolved by Northampton County Council that the proposed 2022 Northampton County budget shall be amended as indicated on the attached document.
do we take this as a whole, or do I have to do it
Nope.
line
This was
item
by
by
whole.
by whole?
We have to do it by whole?
No.
I don't think we have
yes,
to.
it is.
Mr. Spadoni?
Amended.
Mr.
If you're gonna
Spadoni?
amend it, no, but if you're gonna vote
Amendments
it.
or discussions, we can proceed in that fashion. You can do it individually, or you can do it as a whole. It's at council's will.
You can amend it individually, but it be voted on as a whole.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the other lady.
Yes.
All right, so this is introduced. Do we have discussion on these items? There's a misspell, but it's no big deal. It just says information instead of information.
We did.
How about now?
They'll send us a new one.
Information.
Okay.
Hearing no discussion?
Did somebody break, I'm sorry, I got point of clarification. Does anybody, the question was asked, can these be broken out? Did anybody break anything out, or are we voting on the whole thing?
No, I'm asking if there's discussion. No one has broken anything out to
Oh,
date.
okay.
I'm waiting for discussion and no one's saying anything.
I'm just going to say something. So if we break something out, I would like to break out the contingency and the conduct of elections and vote on those separately.
So you need to be specific. Which items?
Christopher.
I would
Wait a
say-
minute.
Okay.
Christopher, we can make a motion to amend the amendments, but we can't vote, you know what I mean? The resolution by itself has to be voted on as a whole. But we can amend the amendments.
I want to be sure that each council member has the opportunity to forward any amendment they want after motion, second, and vote. I do not want to discourage any discussion in that regard. What I hear is Councilwoman Zawinski may have a motion, and I think that could be heard and could be seconded and could be voted by council. And there may be others.
So I asked her to be specific, so
Right.
she's stating something. Go ahead.
So specifically, I would like to break out the council contingency and financial stabilization, and then specifically break out the conduct of elections to be voted on separately.
You can make a motion to amend the revisions, but you can't vote on them separately as far as the amendments as a whole. The resolution is to adopt the budget as, the amendments to the budget.
But if you amended the resolution such that you made each one of those things their own individual resolution, which I think by the Home Rule Charter, any council member can put forth a resolution at any point in time, right?
But
But these are
not in the middle of a resolution.
Okay.
This is part of a resolution. It's not a resolution
Okay,
separate.
then keep it all the same.
It's,
That's fine.
no. What I'm saying is you can do a vote on the, you can make a motion to remove these or amend these individually. You'll need a motion and a second to do that. But when you come to adopting the resolution, the amendments are, the resolution is to amend, to accept the amendments.
I see what you're saying. I just don't understand why you can't amend it to remove that and then vote on it separately.
I think
But
what
I
you're
hear- I
trying to
hear you.
do is,
We're
if
gonna
I could
keep it-
help you, I think if you want to have a discussion on those items, perhaps you should have a discussion on those items first, and then if you want to make the motion, make it after the discussion. That might be helpful.
I understand. I had my discussion yesterday about my objections to these two categories, and I thought it would be easier to separate them out and vote on them separately so as not to throw the baby out with bathwater, so to speak. If you have to vote on this whole entire amendment as such, then there are things that I object to in here, and then I would have to vote no on the whole. Thank you.
So I'm asking my
that's how I'll vote.
solicitor again, what is the best mechanism for doing so?
If she would like to make a motion to remove it, there's a second, we'll have a vote in that regard.
Okay.
And if I may, I just want to be clear that my position is that all council members should be heard, and there should be vibrant discussion of this and other matters that come before council.
I don't dispute that, and I don't want to stop that. I just want to make sure that we're doing things appropriately and the way that we're
I
supposed to.
think I know what, if I may, Madam President. I
Please.
think I know what Tara wants to do. I mean, if it's a motion to pull that one at a time, do that separately, and then have that as an amendment. I will second her motion of her amendment, so that she gets a chance to vote on it separately, and then eventually, though, we have to vote on the entire
Yeah.
resolution, correct?
So her motion would be to do each of these three things separately, but you're going to make a motion to remove it from the amendments.
you.
And then we're
I'm going
going,
to withdraw my desire to remove anything and just keep it simple, and we can vote on it just
no,
like
Tara,
that.
listen, just
No,
listen.
I'm fine. I'm good.
It's, you can do that, you can do each one individually by motion to be removed. They can be voted on individually.
I understand that.
And then what will happen is then we vote on the resolutions for the amendments that remained or are still included.
It's not unusual to do it.
because you can then see if everybody wants to remove it, or everybody wants to keep it, or whether it's a split vote or whatever.
I do understand what you're saying, and you know
Okay.
what? I'm gonna not overcomplicate this, and we'll just vote on it like this. And that's the way it was written, that's the way it will get voted on.
What is wrong with this? They had it turned off.
So now I have a question. Do I need to go through each one and vote on each one separately?
No. They were
So then
both-
I will go back to the point of having discussion on this resolution. Are there any points of discussion on the resolution as a whole? Hearing none, seeing none, vote on the resolution.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky,
No,
Mr. Kuzic,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Mr. Lott, Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Resolution adopted by a vote of 8-1.
All right, next we have the consideration of personnel request resolution, Registrar of Elections and Deputy Registrar of Elections. Mr. Heckman, will you introduce this resolution?
Shoot. Yeah. I'm sorry, yes.
Here.
They're both on the same one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that they're both on the same resolution, which I just did. It is hereby resolved that one full-time position of Chief Registrar, pay grade CS 29, 3C, salary 72,754, shall be upgraded to pay grade CS 29, 4D, salary 76,028 in the Department of Administration Elections, effective January 1st, 2022. It is further resolved that one full-time position of Deputy Registrar, pay grade CS 20, 7G, salary 57,335, shall be upgraded to pay grade CS 20, 8H, salary 59,943 in the Department of Administration Elections, effective January 1st, 2022. So moved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this? Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky,
yes,
Mr. Kuzic,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni,
Yes.
Mr. Lott,
Yes.
Mr. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Next, we have the adoption of the 2022 Northampton County budget as amended. Ms. Ferraro, would you introduce this resolution?
Oh, boy, I don't have it in front of me.
Got to make you work
Jeez.
before you go, sister.
Let me read yours.
She was reading her proclamation.
Resolved by the Northampton County Council that the following 2022 Northampton County budgets incorporated by reference hereto shall be adopted as amended the second day of December 2021. General funds, special revenue funds, and capital project funds.
Thank you. Is there any discussion regarding this? Mr. Myers?
Just one comment. Craig, y'all feel good. This is your last budget you ever have to adopt there, Ms. Farrar.
Mr. Myers was speaking to you. This is your last budget you ever have to adopt.
Yeah, I know.
Now that we raised the pay, you should come back.
Yeah.
And you know what? And they have that term limits thing now that, you know,
Skip a term and then you do it.
skip a term and come back, right?
Okay, is there any other discussion? Yes, Ms. Zirinsky.
I'm just gonna say that because I did not vote for the amendments, that I think that I'm going to vote no on this budget, because it says as amended.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Cusick?
So we have a lot of time spent as far as budget hearings. And throughout the budget, there's, pet projects for individual departments. And, sometimes we try to amend it and they come back and fight for it, and that's fine. But there was a question asked when we went over the Graysdale budget, and believe it or not, it wasn't asked by me. The question that was asked was, what are you basing this budget on as far as a daily census? And I believe the answer that came back was 575 patients. And we've been nowhere near that number. I wish we were at that number. I think that would be terrific. But once I heard that, I felt that the budget for Graysdale was simply wishful thinking. If it were a novel, we'd have to put it in the fiction section. So, I've been here before when Graysdale budget administrators came up and tried to put a good spin on a situation that was not going well. And now, I believe that 575 number is optimistic. If that is the census, I'll be the first one to say, bravo, you've done a great job. But that's not where we're at. And so I would have preferred to have seen a realistic number, maybe 525 or something like that. But to me, their budget is built on a number that just doesn't make sense based on where we're at. So I'll be a no vote.
And yes, Mr. Hackman?
I just wanted to say at the end of the meeting when we have what do I call it?
I don't know. I want to know.
The liaison reports or whatever. Yesterday morning, I was at the Graysdale Advisory Board meeting for council, and I'll touch on that when that time comes, and I can maybe shed some light on some of the things Mr. Kusick said.
Is there something you need to share now that's germane to his comment? That's
No, not
better
really.
said now?
No,
Okay.
not wrong.
Any other?
Well, let me just interrupt then. Well, I'd like to know, if the census is somewhere near 575, I'll retract my statement and vote for the budget.
It's not.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying, there are things, I don't know, the census, if I'm not mistaken, and Sue's here, we went over a lot of things, but let me just get to the census part. I believe right now the census is somewhere around 475. Am I off? I think that's correct. Now, yeah, I agree with you. I want to see it higher too. I mean, you're right. It's 100 below, but rather than get into, I'll tell you what they were telling me, but obviously they want to get it up, so up more, and I don't know if it'll be successful or not. But I'm not just saying your point's not well taken. You're right. It's not it's not at 575. It's 100 below that as of right now. Yes.
Okay.
Question
you.
for Mr. Kusick.
Yeah.
Mr. McGee?
Did you vote for last year's budget?
You got talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. McGee has the floor.
Did you vote for last year's budget, Mr. Kusick?
Yeah, I believe, well, here's what you have to understand.
No,
The
I'm
situation-
just curious.
The answer is yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this resolution? Call for the vote.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
No.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yep.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
No.
Resolution's adopted by a vote of 7-2.
Thank you. Next, we have the adoption of the Northampton County Capital Improvements Plan. Mr. Myers, could you read this resolution?
The Northampton County Council has proposed the 2022
We hear you.
County Capital Improvement Plan shall be adopted on the second day of December.
Thank you. Any discussion on this matter? Call for the vote.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have the adoption of the 2022 real estate tax millage rate ordinance. Mr. Heckman and Cusick introduced this ordinance at the November 18, 2021 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the public on this matter? Open for discussion. Ms. Ferraro.
I would like to offer an amendment that the tax millage stays at 1.18 rather than the 1.08.
I guess that's a motion?
She's offering an amendment, she needs a second.
Second to that amendment?
Come on, folks. The election's over.
For the purposes of discussion, I'll offer a second.
That's fair.
Wow,
We've done
that's-
that
We've done
That's
that
very
before, and
charitable.
everybody has a right to be heard. I heard that earlier this evening.
No, seriously, I've been here off and on for 32 years, just like Mr. Heckman. And we have such needs in the county with Graysdale as at 1 star. So I'm not making this political or anything, but we know that every county executive proposed a budget when they were up for reelection. It was, Brockville had a 10% decrease proposed in his. And it's just a systematic thing to do. And it's neither here nor there, but I just strongly feel that for the little bit that people are going to get back, I just think there's many other needs within our county. So that's the only reason I'm proposing this, just for our millage to stay the same. And that's really all I need to say.
Any further discussion?
Yeah,
Mr. Heckman?
I'll speak to what Ms. Ferraro said, because, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with her, the sincerity and how she feels. I mean, we were at a time when we called it our own version of yo-yo economics, that sometimes you would see a tax cut, and then a few years later, you needed a tax increase. Right. And I know Jerry scolded us on the very first one that we voted on.
We did.
And he was right. We were wrong. And then we had, as Brockville, as you said. So, I mean, I get your historical perspective. I really do. When I looked at this budget and the executive proposed it, I went through, like I always do. I really was digging through the numbers in the blue book and the white book. And I mean, my feeling right now is, people keep saying, well, don't interfere, don't get involved. But we are the budget people. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to approve it. Our cash reserves look really healthy right now. The projections I see, I think they're going to stay healthy. Also, we had a lot happen because of the American Rescue Funds. Mm-hmm. So I would say this, Peg, I'm Ms. Ferraro. I don't know, we've known each other too long. Anyway, the thing is, I understand what you're saying, and under most circumstances, I would probably agree with you, because we've had to face the music of a tax cut and then being given a tax increase down the road, right, hitting our heads against the wall. I don't think, unless Mr. Dertinger wants to put 4 stories on the Forensic Center, or we have something that really jumps out at us, I think we're in pretty good shape financially, and I would predict we'll be in pretty good shape going forward. That doesn't mean I say this is what I would do, but it's not my job. They put this together. So I'm going to support it, but, I mean, you know me. If this goes south, I'm not going to be shy about reminding Mr. McClure. I mean, and he knows that too. But I mean, so I'm going to support it. But I do know where you're coming from. You're giving council I love history, and you're giving council a historic perspective.
I'll be going in one more meeting.
Oh, you sit out one term and come back. I know. Anyway, I just wanted to add that.
But, maybe I shouldn't even say this, but I understand an email went out to all the employees to do some, to go over to Graysdale and help with trays and so forth. And then it was rescinded. I think that was a wonderful idea. And this extra money that we could get by keeping this could certainly go to our own employees to go and do this extra work at Graysdale with trays and getting water and making the residents comfortable. So anyway, that's just my little speech. I'm done.
Can I comment?
Ms. Zirinsky had a hand up, and then you certainly can.
Thank you. I would reiterate what Mr. Heckman so eloquently said, that we do have a healthy budget, but furthermore, Mr. McClure did run prominently on a tax decrease. He outlined this, and if his reelection by such a huge margin is a referendum of any kind of what people want. In a representative democracy, I think we have to give it to them. And that's why I'm going to vote for this.
Mr. McGee?
And this might not be relevant, I don't know, but, I mean, I'm hearing that, you want to, go back and just keep the taxes the same where they are at. But then I'm also hearing Mr. Kusick next to you saying that, that the Graysdale budget apparently, and I could be wrong, and please correct me if I am, Mr. Kusick, but you're saying that, they're looking at how many patients are there and what it's budgeted for. Am I assuming that they have over budgeted Graysdale? Is that why you're not voting for the tax, for the budget? Is that what you were getting at?
Well, yeah, if I can just
'Cause
respond.
that's what I picked up on. Maybe
Okay.
I'm wrong.
I feel that the numbers are inaccurate based on the situation that we currently are facing. That was the reason for my no vote. And if I could comment as to specifically on the millage rate, I believe Mr. Heckman properly mentioned some of the reasons for this, the tax decrease. The amount of federal money that this county has received from the American Rescue Plan, the CARES Act, we do have a healthy fund balance. And the other part of it is we do have a growing tax base. As much as we hate those warehouses, they contribute to the tax base. And even the ones we see in South Bethlehem there that were on Alerta, every year they go up 10%. So we do have a healthy fund balance. We have a significant amount of federal money. And I see no reason not to support the tax cut.
So back to where I was going was I was hearing that there was a little bit too much money going to Graysdale. Then I'm hearing we need to put more in and maybe keep the taxes the same. That's what I heard. I don't know if everybody else heard that. No offense or anything. that's what I heard. I'm trying to make sure I understand what I'm hearing because I value, what you have to say. You've been around a while and, so anyway, all right. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ron will be here with you next.
Oh, please, if I make it. A clarification. I'm voting for it, but I'm not giving anything to Mr. McClure. I'm voting to give tax money back to the taxpayers. So, I mean, when you said that, I'm just, we're voting to cut taxes.
Properly?
No,
Because it does, I do understand that the money goes to the taxpayers.
I'm being irreverent. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for reminding me.
We get a little punchy, I understand.
I just want to remind people that we're on discussion on the amendment. We still will need to vote on the amendment before we vote on the ordinance. So is there any further discussion on this amendment? Call for the vote, please.
I have a feeling it's going to die fast.
Mrs. Ferraro,
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
No.
Ms. Zirinsky,
No.
Mr. Kuzic,
No.
Mr. Giovanni,
No.
Mr. Heckman,
No.
Mr. Lott, Mr. McGee,
No.
Mr. Myers.
No.
Motion fails by a vote of 1 to 8.
Now I'd like to vote on the ordinance as it stands. Do we have any discussion on it or anything else we need to season it or skewer it with, or can we vote on this ordinance? We'll call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
No.
Adopted by a vote of 8 to 1.
Thank you. Is there any other old business that we forgot? Thank God. Let's move into new business. Consideration of the 2022 County Council meeting schedule resolution. Mr. Lott, will you introduce this?
Excuse me. Resolved by Northampton County Council that one, in accordance with Northampton County Home Rule Charter, Section 206A, the Northampton County Council organization meeting will be held on Monday, January 3rd, 2022, and will begin at 4:30 p.m. prevailing time in the third floor meeting room, room 3116, Northampton County Government Center, 669 Washington Street, Easton, Pennsylvania. And two, the regular schedule of meetings for the year 2022 shall be conducted the first and third Thursday of each respective month, beginning at 6:30. Prevailing time in the third floor meeting room, room 3116, Northampton County Government Center, 66-9 Washington Street, Easton, Pennsylvania, with the following exceptions. The meeting scheduled for Thursday, December 15th is canceled and rescheduled for Thursday, December 8th. I will take note of that. And will begin at 4:30 prevailing time and will be held in the third floor meeting room, room 3116, Northampton County Government Center, 669 Washington Street, Easton, Pennsylvania. So introduced.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Mr. McClure, I have a discussion. My understanding is that the swearing-in ceremony is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Is that correct or incorrect?
That's what I've been told.
Okay, so given that, is 4:30 a little bit late to be starting that first meeting, and should we make an amendment to this resolution?
I think you should. I don't have a vote.
Well, no, I guess that was a rhetorical question to the council, but thank you. Excuse me?
Linda, I was trying to ask Linda, haven't we done something where it says immediately following we will have it, or must we
Swearing in,
put a time in? I thought we've done that where we said,
For the ad itself, you have to put a time in, but for the swearing, you can say immediately following the swearing-in ceremony.
When I weigh in, you need a time certain. I'm with Linda. It's like herding cats sometimes.
yeah, no, I understand, that's true.
But you also have to take into account how many people are going to get sworn in.
2, 3, 4. I mean, I would.
There are 5 people getting sworn in.
At most. I mean, I'm sorry.
There's 5 people getting sworn in.
Right, but you have Mr. McClure.
Oh, no, 5.
3 magistrates.
You're right.
Oh, you mean total
Yeah,
swearing in?
it's the whole entire ceremony.
Well, again, I don't,
I mean, I think you could get away with 4.
Should-
I'd be
Can't
with
you
one,
just
two.
say
Can we,
immediately following?
I don't want to table it per se, but I would like to get some information from whoever's setting up the ceremony so that we can have a more accurate time. I hate to be done at 3 o'clock and have to sit around for an hour and a half and wait for a meeting.
That's the
Well,
courts, they
there's
usually set it up.
So I
Right.
just don't know how to address this matter.
My comment would be, because I've experienced this like everyone else a number of times, it's a celebratory event. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of family. There's probably going to be 500-600 people there in courtroom number 1. We have the county-wide chief executive and others being elected and installed, the magistrates. There's a lot going on.
It's a to-do.
4:30. Yeah, we might even have protesters.
Oh, dear Lord.
4 o'clock is good.
Do we have the right to amend the time if we adopt this tonight?
We'd have to advertise it, but yes.
May I
Yes,
make a
sir.
comment? We do have another meeting next week, so perhaps tabling this and taking it up at our next meeting might
Make a
be.
motion.
So I'm going to move to table it at this time.
Thank you.
To get clarification, is that what we're waiting for?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to whoever's actually setting up the whole thing and confirm the times and then try to figure out,
Jermaine Green is your man.
Yep,
okay.
it's always been administrative.
So why so early?
I don't know, that's what I'd like to confirm. I have no idea, just listening to,
Keep in mind, he has to corral all the judges too, and, they all sit up there, so I'm sure that, as Mr. Spadoni knows, the judges get a say.
okay, fair enough. Motion to table, second, vote on the motion. Oh no, we do have to vote on table or just table?
To vote
We have to
on it.
vote on the
Vote on the
table.
table.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes,
The motion passes by a vote of 9-0.
thank you. Hopefully we can revisit this with more information
Yeah.
next week. Thank you. Next, we have the consideration of an agreement between ASME Local 1435 and Northampton County Resolution. Mr. Heckman?
Yeah. So, I know today, it was a nice day today. Not supposed to be so nice tomorrow. Okay, here we are. Whereas Northampton County Charter, Section 202-12 provides that, quote, "The county council shall have the power to approve any collective bargaining agreements with officers and employees," end of quote. Now therefore, it is hereby resolved by Northampton County Council that the collective bargaining unit agreement between Northampton County, Pennsylvania, and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, District Council 88, Local 1435 shall be amended as per the terms exhibited on Exhibit A and approved this second day of December 2021. So moved, and you have the sheet attached that gives you the provisions.
Thank you. Any discussion on this matter?
I don't know, I mean, does anyone want to say anything about it? I don't know if Mr. McClure wants anyone to say. I read it already, so. So, I mean, that's it. I'm just introducing it.
Any discussion, public discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Myers? Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Next, we have consideration of small business grants through American Rescue Plan Resolution. Mr. Lot, please introduce the resolution.
I sure will. Whereas on March 11, 2021, American Rescue Plan Act 2021, H.R. 1319 was signed into law and is intended to combat COVID-19 pandemic, including public health and economic impacts. And whereas Northampton County was awarded an allocation of approximately $30 million of American Recovery Plan funding to spend on various relief efforts. And whereas a grant review committee comprised of Northampton County Department of Community and Economic Development staff and county administration convened to review and make funding recommendations. The recommendations totaling $359,668.75 for 31 projects are attached hereto and made a part hereof Exhibit A. Now therefore it be resolved by the Council of the County of Northampton, 1, that the recommended grants in Exhibit A are approved. 2, that the county executive of the County of Northampton is authorized to execute any and all necessary grants agreements with the applicants not to exceed the approved amount for each grant. So introduced.
Thank you. And I've been advised by Mr. Spadoni that I need to recuse myself on this vote because I have a conflict of interest. So is there any further discussion on this matter? Mr. Myers?
What's the balance of this? Yeah. I know we had balance before, and we didn't look like we gave out that much. So if Mr. Barron can come forth, I'd appreciate it.
So it is actually, I believe we said there was about $4 million left, so minus 358,000 puts us at about, let's just round it to 3.5.
Thank you, Mr. Barron.
Mr. Barron, just, if I may, number 6, it's a small, it's Beers, capital B, not Beers Siding and Gutters.
No, it's, yeah,
Well,
it actually should, it should
I
be,
saw Beers, and I didn't.
yeah, they're not
read it
selling
right.
beer with their siding and gutters, that is
Yeah,
correct.
whatever, okay, I'm fine, I don't know why.
Any other discussion on the, call for the vote?
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Abstain.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Adopted by a vote to 8-0 with 1 abstention.
Thank you. Is there any other new business to discuss? Are there any other county council committee reports? Are there any council liaison reports? Mr. Heckman?
All right. Yeah, let me start by saying I probably misspoke. I didn't want to cast like that Mr. Kusick was wrong in his numbers. I wanted to just say that I'm getting into a little bit more things on Graysdale going forward. But he's certainly correct about what he said as far as the numbers go. We had a meeting yesterday morning of the Graysdale Advisory Board. And I just think it's a few things that of note that you probably want to be aware of. the vaccine mandate that was scheduled for the beginning of January, there's a moratorium on that right now. So we're not going to be, and if I'm not mistaken, we're not going to be forced to, people aren't going to have to get a vaccination the beginning of January to work there. I think the court issued a stay on that. If somebody wants to.
It is correct that CMS has guided today that they're going to adhere to the injunction that came out of the federal district court in Louisiana.
Okay, so then.
It does not mean, however, that local decisions may not be made in the near future with respect to preserving life at Graysdale.
Okay, but I mean, the court thing, I was correct, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's all. So that was discussed. And part of the reason I think that was discussed was, I believe right now, and Sue's here, so she can correct me if I screw this up, residents are at approximately around 93 to 94% or 95% vaccinated. So we're in good shape. At this point, I believe there's approximately 136 staff that are not vaccinated. And of course, that falls into line with, I think, what Mr. McCord just said. I was trying to find out where they stood in terms of, let's say, there's a mandate. And nobody seems to have a handle on I mean, I think some of them will definitely get it if they have to, but we don't know who won't get it. And, you know, staffing is an issue. So that's just something that you should be aware of. I asked about the new Omicron that's out there. Yeah. And fortunately, so far, nothing involving Graysdale. I said, well, what about going forward? They're going to keep the same kind of procedures already, just like we did when COVID came out. So, I mean, they're prepared to move if we have to. I'm sure they've talked to the administration about that. They have plenty of rapid testing supplies. So we're in, let's put it this way. I don't know about this variant, but we're in better shape going into this than we were the first time. So we're prepared. The problem is, though, I asked Jen, how many people would you need if we got into rapid testing on people coming in and out? She'd need 10 to 20 people to administer it, and right now she couldn't spare that. So that's going to be, you know, we may not get to that point, but I just wanted to alert people. The other thing is, I asked, well, can we tell people who come in to visit, can we ask them if they're vaccinated? Can we and she said, no, we're not allowed to ask anybody coming in if they are vaccinated. Which I mean, I guess that's the law. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into that in the beginning of the year, but, and also then we got into the agency nurses. The agency RN nurses are getting approximately $130 to $150 per hour. Now that's going to the agency. I don't mean the nurses are getting it, but I mean, there is the state though, I think the Senate is putting up a bill, and this may have came through CCAP, I don't know. They want to put a bill to cap the rates that agency nurses can charge long-term care facilities to stop gouging, which I think is probably going on. I don't know how successful it would be. And we did talk about.
There's going to be a cap.
Yeah, and of course we discussed staffing, and they're still doing what they've told you and came in and told you that they want to do. It's very difficult. We talked about how the hospitals and every nursing home is having the same problem we're having. So, I mean, we're not unique, and we're going to have to figure out a solution going forward. The census, I believe, is at 475. I think that was as of yesterday. I mean, I want to add this because I was talking to some of the people on the advisory board. Now that we're out of the campaign and everything like this, I had a couple people call me that have family at Graysdale. They're scared and they're nervous. And they asked me my honest opinion. And I said, I wouldn't pull my loved one out of Graysdale right now. I don't think you're going to get better care somewhere else. I said, I still stand firmly behind Graysdale. We are having issues like other long-term nursing homes are having issues. I still believe in the county home. I don't know what changes or modifications we may be looking at going forward. I'm not going to close my mind to any of that, but I'd like to just let people know that I'm not aware of any situation where anybody's loved one is in danger out at Graysdale. We came out of the campaign, and I get it. Graysdale's a fair campaign issue. It's always been there, but there's some people that were legitimately scared. I mean, if you have an 85-year-old spouse and he's scared and saying, "Do I have to send my wife somewhere else?" And I mean, there's things we can do and improvements we can always make, but I don't want him to think that he's got to now get into a big worrying thing. I would suggest, and this includes myself, that as we go forward and we talk about performance and how things are working, that we just try and keep it as functional as we can. I think this past campaign scared some people, and I hate to see people in that position frightened. We've all been there at one time or another, and it's a frightening thing when you have a loved one at a place. So anyway, that's a personal note, but that wasn't part of the advisory board. But I just wanted to throw that out. I'm going to let you know that I had a few calls from people that I know that have family at Graysdale, and I just wanted to calm their nerves. But anyway, that's all. That's my report. Thank you very much.
Any other liaison reports? Mr. Lott?
Mine's not a report, it's a sentence. I attended this afternoon Northampton County Economic Development Committee. We reviewed additional applications to the American Rescue Plan grants. That's the small business we just approved. We went over some more to bring forward, I believe, on the 9th. They'll be brought forward. The applications are dwindling down. We're getting a lot of money out to small grant businesses. They're doing a good job between the chamber and our economic development, because just like anything, toward the end you get people being a little more creative, so you have to watch a little bit more at the end because they get smart to it. So I kudos to the staff on the review of these things, because people do get creative. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Mr. Cusick?
Yeah, real quick, Ms. Zirinsky, Ms. Vargo Hefter, and myself attended the CCAP conference last weekend. The priorities were set there, and we will see a resolution sometime early next year before this body. One thing that I wanted to say, and I see Sue Wondolowski is still here. I did attend a session where they were talking about offering more remote work for county caseworkers as an incentive, particularly to hire some of the young folks, because that's what they want. Not completely remote, but maybe they come into the office 2 or 3 days a week, and then there's some remote time. There are some counties that are doing that, and it seems to have been successful in attracting and retaining some young employees. So, thank you.
I wanted to tag on to that because I was going to state what the priorities were that we voted on. And so these are the 3 of them are human service. 1 is appropriate funding to support the crumbling mental health system. They want to make sure our funding stays intact. 2 is the human services workforce crisis. Everybody on that committee feels that that's dire across the state. Broadband expansion was number 3. It is every year, and we still can't seem to break through in Pennsylvania. 4 is appropriate funding and reform for the children and youth system to adequately serve our children and families. 5 is to promote election integrity. 6 is 911 funding and reauthorization. And 7th is funding and resources for elections. So those, if you want to propose those next week, or if you want to wait till next year, I'm all in. That's what our group has done. Any other liaison reports? Council clerk report.
Nothing.
Council solicitors report.
Just to keep you up to speed, there's been communication from the Election Commission about signage. I am not convinced that council has any jurisdiction or domain in that regard. I will report back. I'm going to meet with Ms. Cozy and Solicitor Santee in that regard.
May I ask the solicitor a question?
Yes, you may.
I read your memo, and I guess I was confused because this came up in the past. Didn't I mean, didn't a lot of that, townships had all kinds of little regulations. And I thought that was all pretty much shot down by the courts, saying you can't make, you can't, you can have like so many feet from a polling place. But as far other than that with signs, you can't prohibit, am I mistaken?
You're on the right track, if that's a good phrase.
I'm just in the wrong car.
But the other problem is that I am aware in Northampton County that other municipalities, particularly Easton and Bethlehem, have enacted ordinances that restrict where you can put the signs, how you can put them up, where they go on the pole, what you can fasten them with, for safety reasons. So the question then becomes, is not only does council, do we have jurisdiction in that regard, but should we exercise that jurisdiction to ace out the people that are doing it under the municipality's planning code? It's a double problem.
Madam President, going forward next year, we may want to ask, because I know there's some polling places, people put signs out for elections, and some places just take them down right away. They won't even let them up.
City of Easton,
Well, I'm just saying, maybe we
had
can,
fun.
the elections office can find out for us, like, who would not permit signs and who will permit signs. That way, you're not going to, well, I think Lehigh County has that, where
yeah. Well,
they get,
hopefully
find
they
out.
could do that, but I think it was just posted that morning, and so if they don't, if
Well,
the
you know, like the-
jurisdiction chooses not to share with the election commission, we can ask them to research that, but they don't have to provide the information. So again, it could be discussed.
Well, we can ask the polling
Next year.
place. Like, there's a church in Bethlehem that routinely takes down your signs.
Well, there are state regulations that reference the signage at the polling place.
Yes.
You can't have them there. They can't be at the polling place. They have to be X number of feet
Well,
away.
this
I don't
place
know.
won't let you even do that. They just take them down and throw them out.
Right.
So that's all. I was just wondering if we could discuss that in the new year.
I have one more announcement to make, that I have scheduled tentatively a December 13th at 5 PM meeting for council in case there is any residual business before this body before the end of the year. We may not need it, but I am scheduling it and I am announcing it tonight because we have to keep in line with the notice requirements. So it will be December 13th, which is a Monday, at 5 PM.
Gotcha.
Hopefully, we will not need it, and we will let you know as soon as possible. Other than that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Thank
I didn't hear a
God.
second. TG?
Tom, Mr. Giovanni.
Gotta speak up, Gio.
Tom,
Mr. Beck.
do they have you fishing for boats in Southeastern? That's all I want to know. What they're doing live in, and do they have Kerry and Rosetta? That's all I want to know.
Yeah. You know what, interesting story, when I was a township supervisor, we had some things about signage in our zoning regulations. We were
You're right.
I mean, you know, and then you have a debate on issues. I'm not making fun of you.
About free speech.
Why would I make fun of you?
No, you can finish.
I gotta go. Come
No,
on.
go ahead.
Don't
It's
go.
almost 9 o'clock.